we welcome you, Mr. Prateek HIra ji, and look forward to hearing from you. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Atul Sharma, and thank you, Mr. Surendra Singh Shahpura, for having me on this panel this morning. Good morning to all of you and to my co-panelist, Chef Manjeet Gill and Chef Rajiv Goyal. Both of them very good friends, and we have been together on many panels related to this subject. And as you said that the subject is close to my heart, I would say it is closest to my heart and something I enjoy talking and learning about the most in life. So ladies and gentlemen, let me start by saying that who doesn't love to eat good food? So I think all of us, so we can safely say that this is the most universal attraction for all of us, and who doesn't want to sort of go to places and eat nice food, local cuisine, and try all those unique things. I mean, the United Nations World Tourism Organization has already recognized culinary tourism as a niche tourism activity, which is an experience that's related to food, the food products, and all the activities around it. So, which means that it's not only about eating food or cooking food, but it involves all things around it, like visiting the local producers and going to attend the food festivals and learning a bit of cooking at these cooking classes, which are run by locals. So and so much more. You can the array goes on and on. So culinary, let's call culinary tourism as gastronomy tourism to give it a bigger canvas than just food. It contributes kind of largely in taking the destinations, giving them a new height in tourism. Food, cuisine, or call it gastronomy, it keeps traditions alive. It involves local communities. Plus, of course, it hugely contributes to generate a huge employment opportunity, which is at the moment most important for us in India, and even the tourism sector after the COVID is ebbing and people are out of their work or limited. We are working with limited workforce. So this is one subject that probably can change the things that tourism has gone through, and very quickly. So this is a form which comes in naturally to us in India. So this form of, and plus it has given rise to so many new professions like food walk leaders and food bloggers, food writers, photographers, and food critics, and whatnot. The list goes on and on. Not only this, but often, food becomes an attraction in itself and actually the reason to travel. While rest of the things, sightseeing or cultural heritage monuments and all those things are in the periphery. So the main focus always, probably in this kind of a tourism activity, becomes food. And I mean, it sounds unbelievable to many, but there's a research to back it which says that 53% travelers actually travel for food. In fact, to only places that promise them good food, great food, which have multiple eateries and some unique array of cuisines. Then this research has also pointed out that 80% travelers research for food when choosing a destination for their holiday or planning their holiday. So this becomes a very important kind of motivator for people to travel. And astonishingly, it's 25% of the budget that a traveler spends is spending on food. So I think to the extent where hotels are also relying more on their F&B outlets and banqueting than their room sales. So room sales is just a minor part of it, and to sort of cover up all the things. And I think Mr. Surendra Singh Shahpura, being a seasoned hotelier himself, would agree in his hotels, also, which are quite famous for food. Probably this kind of a system is followed, where there's a lot of attention detailing in their food and beverage outlets. Gastronomy, but I would say is, though most explored and loved subject, but at the same time it is also quite underrated in India. So either we are not proud of our cuisine, or we have not been able to sort of build up that kind of narrative for our cuisine. We've taken it very casually and haven't paid much attention to our own food. I mean, there are battles which have been fought because of food. I mean, when people claim their food, I mean, there is a controversy about the champagne. It's French, and then the American took the name and they call it champagne, and there was a treaty between the two. So all these things have sort of, then the war of biryani, which Chef Manjeet Gill will throw light on, and I see him on the panel, that which is an ongoing war between Hyderabad, between Lucknow, Delhi, and places that, and all the places have their own version of biryanis, even in South India. So there are these things that go on between the two or three parties who claim their particular food, their dish, as a claim to their fame, and we are somehow ignoring it, which is probably rightfully ours. So I say this with great conviction, because in spite of such a huge attraction, we in India have not been able to kind of project our cuisine so well. I mean, if you go abroad, there's hardly any place where you don't find an Indian restaurant which is being run by Pakistanis or Bangladeshis, which is fairly okay for us. But the point is that in the grab of Indian food, what are they giving to their guests? Because there's no structured kind of system that we are following, and when these people come to India, they find it quite different. But that's fair enough. I mean, it's like our Indie Chinese, which we have done, and when we go to China, we find that there's nothing called chow mein, or there's nothing called chicken chili or chicken Manchurian, which we have kind of invented here. So anyway, but that's spreading the cuisine, which is quite positive. I myself come from Lucknow, that gives very high regard to its food, and equally, or rather more high, we regard our cooks more highly. And so to be in love with food is something that comes naturally to me. But this is one place where each dish has a background story to tell. So, for example, I'll narrate a story to you here, that we all eat parathas, and we get parathas everywhere probably. But in Lucknow, there was this cook in the court of Nawab Ghaziuddin Haidar, who would only make 6 parathas for the king's lunch, and nothing else he would make. So there were different cooks to make different things. But this particular fellow, this man would only do parathas. And in these parathas, in each paratha, he used 4.5 kgs, 4.5 kilos of ghee. And making 6 parathas totaled it to about 27 kgs. Now you can run your imaginations to understand that how was it done. And but anyway, so now during the finance audit, there was this minister Aga Mir who raised a question that how is it possible to use 27 kgs of ghee in doing 6 parathas, and probably I want to audit it, and I want to see the making of these parathas. So a session was kept for him when this cook was making these 6 parathas, and he was given this 27 kgs of ghee. So what came out of this was that he did use 27 kgs of ghee, but all that the paratha actually absorbed was about 4.5 kgs. And rest 22 kg, which was left, was put in the drain. So it was drained and wasted. So obviously ministers objected to it and said that from now on, this cook will only get 4.5 kgs of ghee for making these parathas for the king. Now, when this paratha was served to the king, the parathas after the sanction of ghee was served to the king found it not so good, and probably then he called for this chef and asked him that why isn't now that the paratha is not so good as it used to be. So the fellow narrated everything to the king, that there was no sanction earlier, but now he's been sanctioned and his supply has been cut by about 22 kgs. So immediately the king, who was Ghaziuddin Haidar at that point of time, he called for his minister Agha Mir, and not only Agha Mir was slapped in front of everybody in the court of Awadh, but also this cook was given the same position as Agha Mir. And he was honored with a robe and everything, and he was and since then it is said that in Lucknow we don't interfere with the chefs, and that system is still followed. So likewise, you can understand the reason of telling this story here is that it has created value for these parathas. It's not talking about good paratha, bad paratha, or comparing it with any other paratha, but it has created value for this particular dish. Enough curiosity for people to come and try these parathas in Lucknow. And similarly, you have dishes like Galawat kebab, which goes by a name Tunde kebab in Lucknow. So all these things, all these are backed by story. And to quote from your state of Rajasthan, I was recently in Jaipur, just about 4 or 5 months back, and I happened to dine at a restaurant called 1135 AD at the Amer Fort. Now, what I liked most about this restaurant was its menu, where they have curated from different royalties of Rajasthan. Of course, not going into detail, it was authentic, it was good, it was bad, or whatever, but it is enough to excite a diner who's dining in this restaurant. So this is the concept that we need to follow. The storyline is very, very important. And then, in my opinion, the kind of diversity that the Indian cuisine can get, its gastronomy in India, which there's no better way to experience India, its destinations, its culture, its communities, people, than through the culinary traditions that we have in India. When I say culinary traditions, I mean food in every form, from everywhere, eateries, all types of eateries, fine dine restaurants, humble highway dhabas, telas, kochawalas, whatever, temples, gurudwaras, dargahas, local homes, palaces, whatever. So it's about royal cuisine, it's the cuisine from the local subject. Another most important point that I would like to mention here is that it's almost a myth that we have anything called Indian cuisine. So unlike French and Italian, of course, they do have regional variations, but not to the extent that we have. So you can see the amount of diversity in food from northeast to west, east, south, different states, different regions within that state. Rajasthan, for example, from one specific area to another, you switch and there is variation. Same is with all the states, I would say. Even the tiny states have variations. And then there are these subsets, of cuisine in India, such as the tribal cuisine, the community cuisine, those communities who may not have estates of their own, but the Kaista cuisine, the Parsi cuisine, the Sindhi cuisine, all these are, again, of course, we have such a senior and respected chef on the panel, Chef Manjeet Gill, who I'm sure would mention about this when he speaks, and he's done a huge work on these subjects during as being a chef. So he's more of a researcher than just a chef, I would say. So, and then why aren't we mentioning about the enotourism, which is a sub part of gastronomy, wine tourism, which we call in simple terms. So, which is visiting the vineyards and wineries, the tasting, consuming, purchasing wine. And I tell you, we have got some finest spirits in India. Rajasthan is doing some of fabulous things, the family kind of breweries that they have. We've got some great wines coming from the Maharashtra and the Karnataka, even some fruit wines coming from the Northeast, some very nice single malt whiskies that we have, but we are not proud of. I mean, you will seldom find these whiskies, wines being served in any of the great hotels. Why not? So we can probably, to our guests, we can introduce them to these single malts and kind of fine Indian whiskies and gins and rums, which again have stories and Indian connections, at least the gin and the rum I know of, not whiskey so much, but then the wines made of fruits. So this is another area that has to be looked into, which we are somehow ignoring. And these things are not even available, I tell you, in the stores. So when we say that it's being vocal for local and Atmanirbhar, so why not promote these wines and spirits which are made in India, are Indian stuff, and probably sell them and introduce people to these kind of things in our restaurants, in our hotels. Now, another thing is that tourism, as I said, is the culinary tourism, as I said, is a niche subject, so which is very specialized. And I'm now foreseeing a bit of over enthusiasm among travel companies and guides to include it in their general portfolios, without probably understanding what it is. They are doing without much knowledge. Research is not involved. They ignore their own handicaps in this area. After all, it's a specialist field, as I said, niche, and has to be treated that way. So we need to understand that this is no ordinary subject. It requires not only appreciation for food, but we need to be able to interpret well. We need knowledge about the recipes, ingredients, food history, stories to top it all, and a robust research, I would say. So I think it's the right time we pay attention to this aspect before it's too late for our country and it starts getting bad name for this lovely subject that otherwise can be most important driver of tourism and make tourism the most attractive for many people. As I said, 53% of the world's travelers are traveling for food. So it is a huge market. It's a huge thing that we can tap. And a lot of work needs to be done in this sphere. And I'm seeing Rajiv Goyal also on the panel, and he has been doing some good work on this subject, documenting it, and probably in terms of training and all those things, what I know. And I think Rajiv Goyal, when he gets to speak, he will throw some light on what are the kind of initiatives that he is taking in this area, and what are the initiatives that are required from the side of the states and the central government, and of course us as private players. So of course we have. I mean, I'm a person who still makes tehdi rotis, so I'm not an expert on sort of expert as the panelist on the subject who are with us, but the panel is very well informed and thorough experts. So I will, and I'm sure they'll enlighten all of us on this particular subject. So with that, thank you, and I pass it on back to Atul Sharma ji. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hira. In fact, for sharing such a detailed insight. We have some questions that we have received along with the registration. I would like to take two of them with you. Number one is in the immediate aftermath of this pandemic. As hygiene and safety, health safety and physical distancing are going to be important for post-COVID travel, how do you see future of homestay and culinary tourism?
Well, I think it's my personal, I'm not discounting this fact that safety and the the medical thing is important post-COVID. But we need to understand that there is a very thin line between the new normal and the abnormal. So I'm just thinking that we don't become too overzealous of making people kind of wary of eating out, and they aren't. I'm telling you, when the restaurants have opened, when the hotels have opened, food and beverage is one area which is really doing well. I mean, thela walas, I can see the chart thela walas who are using their hands to dip the batashas. Batashas are the golgappas and what pani puri that you call, in the water and serving to their clients, and people are happily having that. So that thing cannot go, and I think जो खाने की जब हम बात करते हैं तो खाने का स्वाद जो हाथों को यूज करने में आता है वो ग्लव्स पहन के यूज होने में नहीं आता. That's a fact with which great chefs will agree to. So there's the hand, and love is also an ingredient. So of course थोड़ा बहुत तो सेफ्टी का ख्याल रखना पड़ेगा, पर होटल्स से खासकर ये देखना पड़ेगा कि वो जो न्यू नॉर्मल है उसको कहीं एबनॉर्मल की तरह से न लेने लगे. तो थोड़ा बहुत उस पे जरूर काम होगा. बट आई एम सीइंग दैट मोर people are going, and people have more understanding of food. Let me tell you this, during the lockdown period, during the things when the things were closed, they have accumulated huge knowledge, and food has been, we were cooking at home, we were doing all experiments at home, and we have gained a lot of knowledge. So अब जो आपके पास जो clients होंगे, the guests, they will be much more informed than they ever were. So hoteliers, restaurateurs, the chefs will have to be more sort of on their toes now.
And there is one more question that pertains to your academic research. Maybe this looks like it has come from some academic thing only. What are your thoughts on culinary researches, and how an academician can encourage students to start researching on culinary topics?
Oh, it's a huge subject, Atul, I must say. It's a huge subject. I mean, there's no limit to it. And Rajiv Goel will sort of throw more light on this particular thing. But as a researcher, I tell you, you have to kind of go into micro details of the subject. As far as documentation is concerned, in one of the webinars, I was with Chef Manjeet Gill, who mentioned clearly that there is nothing in Indian food which is called recipes. So it cannot be documented. It's not like, half a gram this, half a gram that. And each particular dish in India, anything, a simple dish is made differently at each home. So you cannot equate everything. It's unlike French cuisine or Italian cuisine where they have documented everything. But I tell you, it calls for a huge research, and India should encourage this kind of a research, because we have a lot of extinct cuisine in India. There are many dishes that our forefathers had, but we have stopped sort of doing it. We only listen about these dishes. We know about the names, which are only in stories or part of some books or magazines that we come across. So which is very different. I tell you about a dish which is made in Lucknow, which is called the Moti Pulao. Moti Pulao, that was made with the intestines of the goat, which was thoroughly cleaned, and then egg white was introduced in it, and each bead was tied with a string. It was then put in a boiling water, and then it was introduced in the pulao. So these are such difficult things which you will not ever get. There are kinds of breads that you don't get. There is zamidos, which is almost extinct now. You don't get zamidos muchly in the region of Awadh, unless, of course, there are. So these elderly people who are at our homes, we have to connect with them. We have to be with. It's not. The idea is not to sit with a chef of a 5-star hotel, but that's how great people like great chefs have learned their art of cooking and art of serving by being at these small, humble eateries, dhabas, and learning from them the right and authentic, learning from their mothers, learning from their grandmothers, and so that's how the food heritage has been passed on. So, but I tell you, it involves a huge amount of research, and we should encourage this kind of a research.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me take one more. Uh, if you could see in the chat box, somebody has talked about the potential of gastro diplomacy.
That's a big thing. When people visit, and Modi ji always ensures that the diplomacy is through his stomach. Way to man's heart is through his stomach. Or when Modi ji goes out, people try to do Gujarati cuisine to impress him and introduce. So it's a great way of doing cuisine. Our food has traveled like Scotch eggs that you get in the UK has traveled from Nargisi kofta to there, and with variations, or it traveled from there. I don't know how, but these are the things that. So it involves a huge amount of diplomacy, and diplomats are using food. I tell you, this is a very serious subject, and diplomats are actually using food to make their contacts in different countries. There are embassies that host these dinners, lunches, and breakfasts for people, and then whenever there are visiting ambassadors, so they always invite you for nice dinners, and similarly abroad as well. Embassies are places where you can get very authentic food of their country, and there is a lot of cross connections that are built, and food can be an equalizer. In diplomatic terms, if you say, you can, the worst relations can be made best through food, I would say. So it's a great subject. Yes.
In the meanwhile, I will take one more question, and that is how culinary heritage can contribute to tourism, economic growth, and development in Rajasthan. Prateek ji, you would like to take this?
Yes, I think for Rajasthan as a state, cuisine comes in naturally, but the restriction wherever, in any state, I would say, it is not only Lal Mas, which is Rajasthan. So we need to understand that the array of cuisine, the regional cuisine, the specific local cuisine that is there, which has to be brought forth and properly kind of the proper information documentation has to be done, and people need to be trained. So we need to be proud of our local cuisine in a particular city, in a particular area or region, whatever. So let us, because whenever you open these menus, you somehow see a very a fixation for some things. Like if you open a Awadhi menu, you see Galawat kebab, and you see some Shami kebab, and you see something. And similarly, when you say Rajasthan, they said, sir, ye lal mas dekhiye, hamare paas ye lal mas hai, ye Rajasthani hai, ye gatte ki sabzi. The very simple, and but we are not going into that detail. So what are we eating at homes? What are we cooking at homes, how we are cooking at homes, what are the regional differentiation, and why those regional differentiations are there? Probably because of the local availability of the ingredients, local food or whatever, which is very, very important for all the states of India. I would say Indian states are like countries, you would understand. And within that small country, we have so many regions. So if you come to a place like Rajasthan, it is not only restricted to the capital city of Jaipur, but you go into so many other areas. And like Rajiv also mentioned about this, the camel rearing tribe. So that is one part of it. Of course, they will be having their own cuisines, they will be having their own traditions, something to do with camel milk, I'm sure, and how they've been using camel milk or goat milk or sheep milk in different parts of the country. So, which is very, very important. There was a perception. I was attending one of the travel fair abroad, and someone came to me and asked that if I'm a meat eater, will I be lynched? So, this is the misconception that has gone through in many places, that we don't eat meat or we don't eat a particular kind. There are states that eat beef. There are states that drink alcohol as a part of their traditions. You can't take out alcohol. You can't take out meat eating. There are states that eat all kind of things. There are people, ethnic groups that eat all kinds of things. I mean, that we probably may not like to talk about, but then that's the diversity which we need to bring forth to people. So that is an important point where Rajasthan needs to work a lot. And as I said, some of the great alcohol that Rajasthan families are producing, which have to be highlighted. I'm sure we would love to. I couldn't get a nice Rajasthan drink at any of the hotels, top hotels that I stayed. So rather, let me put this question to Mr. Surendra Singh Shahpura, who himself is a seasoned hotelier. Let him come into the picture and tell about this. What's the problem in introducing these drinks in the hotels in Rajasthan?
Yeah, Prateek ji, I got your question. Initially, if you see around 20 years from today, we had Kesar Kasturi and Asha. Asha was from Udaipur, Kesar Kasturi was there, Jagmohan was there from Kishangarh. But in between, due to certain norms, they were stopped. And the taxation on that, the duty on that made the drink very expensive. It was not taken by the tourist. Secondly, you know about it, but the publicity was not there. People coming, they were picking up wine, French wines. They were wanting to go for, whiskey, single malt whiskeys. People didn't know. Only those people who knew about Rajasthan, knew about the heritage, knew that we have our local drink here. The wine is there. They definitely asked the bartender to have the local drink. But of course, it requires immense of work to publicize it, and it needs to be advertised properly. Secondly, thirdly, again, advertisement on liquor is banned, so we can't advertise it that way. I think so. We'll have to make a branding, and with the tourism department now coming out with the policy and the excise department very aggressive in promoting distilleries here in Rajasthan. In the recent excise policy also, as Mr. Goyal was saying, that now they've opened up. I think so more and more people have now applied to the excise department, and soon you will have more of the local distilleries, wines, which will be there, liquor will be there for your tourists and for the food industry.
I agree completely. And then, in our restaurants, we are known to upsell things. So I cannot agree on this point that because your people need to do the tasting. वो उसको 10 ml पिलाएगा ना, तो फिर वो 100 and 150 ml भी पी लेगा. But the point is that you have to introduce the guests who are coming in that, yes, of course, we are serving you Glenlivet or whatever, but this is what our kasturi is. You can just try a little spoon of it, and this is a local. So people enjoy that story behind the thing. So I'm sure you're working hard for this as the positions that you have in the state of Rajasthan. And I'm sure Rajasthan is a very, very tourist-friendly state, and people are very proactive in terms of tourism. And something, maybe on my next visit to Rajasthan, I will be able to taste some of the nice.
Sure, you're most welcome.
Thank
you. One question is there for to Mr. Prateek. Can I?
Yes.
Yeah, we have time. Lal mas or jangli mas? We are selling lal mas and jangli mas both here. And you said lal mas is not a dish of Rajasthan. Then what is it? Is it a hybrid, or it has been brought from somewhere?
It is very much. I said it is very much a dish, but the dishes are not restricted to lal mas. There are so many other things. जब आप किसी रेस्टोरेंट से आपको राजस्थान वो कहेगा लाल मांस है हमारे पास, but I am not saying that it is not. It is very much Rajasthan. But the point is that why is it only Rajasthan? Why is this dish only Rajasthan? Why aren't we expanding our the menus? And those, so that there the chefs have to work according to their knowledge. They have to unearth those lost cuisines. The hunters जो use करते थे, या जमी दोस्त जैसे हमने एक चीज, तो similar pattern is everywhere. It's not restricted to Rajasthan, but even in our Awadhi cuisine, we have things that are totally extinct. there are dishes जहां पर लोगों ने नाम भी नहीं सुना है उन चीजों का, तो वहीं पर हमारे रिसर्च की जरूरत है. And hotels like ITC where Chef Manjeet Gill was working, they have done tremendous job, and मतलब it's किसी को compare नहीं कर सकते. So maybe such initiatives has to be more kind of prevalent in the hotels and restaurants. And as I told you about the Amir Fort restaurant where I went for my lunch, so I am not saying कि वो कीमा अच्छा था या वो something, but I'm talking about the storyline. This comes from this estate and this, so you get excited. So thrilling experience की हम बात कर रहे हैं, जो बहुत सारी डिशेस से आएगा.
Very correct. Question to the all the seniors from the food industry. So tell me one thing, is water very important? Like, of course, the water is filtered, all is there, but the taste what we get, like what dal I eat at my farm, or what South Indian dish I have when I'm in South, or maybe down in Mumbai, Udupi restaurant, we try to get the same chef here and tell him to make, but that taste doesn't come. Is water the main concern on that?
या बस हम सिर्फ लखनऊ का इसमें पानी के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में बोल, यहाँ पर बस ये कहा जाता है कि क्या आबो नमक जब आप किसी से पूछते हैं, आई एम टॉकिंग इन हिंदी बिकॉज इट आई मीन इन उर्दू बिकॉज इट लुक्स स्वीटर दैट वे. सो जब यहाँ पर आप किसी से पूछते हैं कि खाना कैसा लगा आपको, तो उसको इस तरह से पूछा जाता है कि क्या आबो नमक ठीक था, यानी कि क्या पानी और नमक की जो क्वांटिटी थी वो ठीक थी. So water always plays an important role, even if you see the whiskies like Scotch or whatever. So वो स्कॉटलैंड की तभी वो whiskey या वो जहाँ पर पानी जो है वो एक बहुत ही main ingredient होता है. तो I think you have a very good point on this, that water does play a very, very important role in cooking and enhances or decreases, I mean differentiate, not enhances, this is the wrong word, but differentiates the taste. और जैसा कि शेफ राजीव गोयल इससे पहले बता रहे थे कि all the skills of this thing, but storyline is also equally important for interpretation of the food. A simple food can be interpreted well. अब जब जैसे पान की बात है, तो पान बनारस के बड़े मशहूर होते हैं यहाँ पर उत्तर प्रदेश में, पर जब हम यहाँ पर पान खिलाते हैं तो एक शेर के साथ एक शेर आपको अर्ज कर रहे हैं. पान के ऊपर लिखा गया है कि इसका ये इस तरह से है कि पान उसके लब पे है, पान उसके लब पे है और मैं देखा करूं, पान उसके लब पे है और मैं देखा करूं, क्या एक पत्ते से बदतर मेरी तकदीर है. तो ये देखिए हमने पूरा कितनी स्वीटली डिफाइन कर दिया कि जब आपको हम पान खिला रहे हैं तो वो लाली जो आपके होंठों पर आ रही है, तो ये हमारे लखनऊ में अंदाज है पान खिलाने का. तो आई मीन टू से व्हेन यू बैक इट अप विद द स्टोरीज, इट बिकम्स एक्साइटिंग एंड यू कैन अट्रैक्ट एंड पुल क्राउड. सो व्हिच इज द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट ऑफ गैस्ट्रोनॉमी टूरिज्म. Gastronomy per se is a skills. Gastronomy per se individually is making food, cooking food, whatever. But when you add tourism to it, the storyline, the history, all these things in combination with the skill sets is very, very important. So that shouldn't be missed at all.
Okay.
Now we exceeded by 10-12 minutes, and Prateek ji, you also managed to stay back for the complete time with us.
The topic was so exciting.
Such a wonderful and knowledgeable session. I would request Mr. Shaparaj to closely conclude it in a minute or so.
Yeah, I would start with Prateek ji's opening. Culinary tourism, gastronomy tourism, that keeps tradition alive. And very well said, sir. You have given me a new name, Battle on or Battle for Foods. My next restaurant will have this name now. It's perfect. And war biryani. मतलब आज नई चीजें सुनने को मिली है. मतलब it's an education for a person like me, you know. Parathas from Lucknow. Definitely one lesson you have given for the hotel owners, not to mess up with the chef. जो खर्चा कर रहा है उसको छोड़ दो. No audit on them. And it's very true. Like if I go in the olden times when we had the in-house cooking, जो पुराने cook थे, रसोड़दार, जिसको हम रसोड़दार बोलते हैं, nobody dared to ask them कि इतना कैसे इसमें आपने ये डाल दिया, इतना घी क्या काम में ले लियो, इतना मसाला, तो मीट. आज इस now I am understanding कि you had to give a free hand to them to give the best of the taste, which is rightly said by you कि he knows that so much is going to go, it's going to drain, but ultimately the taste didn't come in those 7 parathas which you said he prepared out of 27 kgs of ghee, and you said ki 4.5 kilo, only 4.5 was used and rest it was drained. So it is not basically waste, it is basically the required thing which is required there to make that particular dish very tasty. Thank you very much, sir. All your points have been well taken. Rajiv ji, of course, I had a discussion with him yesterday on call also regarding we were talking yesterday also regarding agro-tourism, and I am very much positive that with the new tourism policy, sir, which has come up of Rajasthan government, in which the rural tourism, agro-tourism and integrated village tourism is being formulated, we would try to put these things in like popularization of food is very important. We need to popularize it, we need to publicize it, and we need to also make it in a proper way where we do not get complaints, because as you very rightly said, it is a threat of life. What you said, that it is a threat of life and it should be treated in a very serious manner. Over here, sir, I would request that I am a vice president on the Federation of Hotel and Tourism for Rajasthan. If we could go for a MOU with your organization where we could get the details and we would be able to educate and give some know-how to our stakeholders operating hotels in heritage and other properties, other city hotels, boutique hotels, corporate hotels, where they could pick up these things and they would have a upsell, as well as it would create a revenue for them. Very well said by Manjeet ji in his entire discussion. What I could gauge is we have everything here. वो एक पुरानी कहावत है, दिया तले अंधेरा. ये दिया तले अंधेरा वाली बात हो गई कि we have everything here, and the food tourism, culinary tourism is not being taken up in a very serious manner. It is not giving that much amount of returns, which he said about the France and Italy. I don't want to criticize any other country's food, but what I could go and eat there was pizza and pasta. इसके अलावा taste मेरे को कुछ ऐसा नजर आया नहीं. And while abroad also we wanted to go to Indian hotel restaurants, rightly said, run by the Bangladeshi brothers and Pakistanis, which we could get the Indian food there, and which was also being, we had a lot of, I could see the local tourists also there from the Europe appreciating the Indian food in this restaurant, and which I really felt very proud about, that our food is being preferred here. So discussion with all these panelists over here, one thing which has come to my mind, that we need to organize this sector and put it in such a way that a tourist who's coming to India or Rajasthan, I would say, reads about it. We've got different destinations. We've got rural tourism. We've got adventure tourism, where the safaris and camel rides, horseback safaris and camel rides are there, which the staying is in tents, camping is there. Out there, these type of food and dishes would gel with the environment. One thing is there, sir, the food, whatever you sell needs a environment. There has to be a hardware where it can be justified, as you very really said, that food is important, food is there, but the environment, and you need to speak about it, you need to educate. उसको आपको एक तरीके से कहते हैं कि उसके बारे में समझाना पड़ेगा, उसकी खूबियां बतानी पड़ेगी, ये किसके जमाने का है, कौन इसको बनाते थे, कौन लोग थे इसको यूज करते थे, इसकी क्या क्या चीजें हैं. So you need to tell a story, which we normally do on the monuments. We do on these monuments where a tourist goes and we give them a entire itinerary, told that this monument was made by Falana He was the one who made this. Same we have to do on food. Like what I could say, that same we have to do on food. We have to talk about it. We have to talk about it before the client comes to the destination, before, when we sell it on our social media, or when we sell it to our foreign FTOs or the domestic tourist who's coming from Gujarat to Rajasthan, or from the south coming to Rajasthan. We need to educate them, and that has to be done through maybe road shows, or maybe through the seminars, or whatever we are doing. So in fact, I personally feel that it was a very knowledgeable and very educative webinar. A lot of things I have taken from this, and definitely we'll sit with our federation members and discuss and try to promote these things. Thank you very much. On to Atulji. Thank you.
Thank you, Shankaraji. And with this, we come to the close of the webinar. It was so interesting. We exceeded by 15-20 minutes, and still we can go on and on. So we will do one more session on food tourism, probably some in times to come. So